On today's show, we take a look at the Rockets superstar duo of Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun. They're blossoming a two-man game with one another. And how do they stack up compared to some of the other best duos in the rest of the NBA? It's all coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What is up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 podcast network in the nation, your team every single day. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Fridays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets, where the best way you can help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing, and then like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. On today's show, we're going to be taking a look at the blossoming two-man game, the superstar duo for this Houston Rockets team of Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun, how good they've been as a tandem this season, leading the Rockets, what some of the numbers say about this duo, what Ime Udoka feels about them, and kind of how their game has grown and evolved this season, and how they stack up compared to some of the other star duos in the NBA this season in particular. And then later, a little bit later on, we'll get into a preview of the Rockets-Cavs game Wednesday night. We'll have Locked On Cavs host Danny Cunningham join us on the program, get us up to speed on what's been going on with the Cavaliers this season. First, I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. And as always, thanks so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being an everydayer. All right, now as we navigate and talk about what we've seen from Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun so far, I think that you have to be very encouraged by a lot of what we've seen out of this Rockets team, in particular with those two guys, the two stars leading the way for this team, despite the adversity that this squad has faced this season, right? Again, they're battling now a significant number of injuries. Obviously, they have completely missed Fred VanVleet this whole season. Still no Dorian Finney-Smith, who hasn't suited up yet for the Rockets this season. And as far as a quick update there, to the best of my knowledge, he is still not doing like any contact work, no 5-on-5 stuff, not scrimmaging. He's basically still just doing, cardio and getting shots up and stuff at practices and things of that nature. So I don't know when, DFS will be back, but you've got that. Now you've got the Tari Eason injury. Jabari Smith Jr. is questionable for the Cavs game. So just, this Rockets team is weathering the storm of a lot of injuries, and they're able to do that because even though they've been dominant in some of their wins, but they've also scraped by in some of their wins, and they're doing it because their star players are playing out of their mind this season. Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun have absolutely been leading this team. They're 9-3 right now. They've got a fantastic win rate. And this little stretch upcoming here for the Rockets, dealing with first the Cavaliers, and then immediately after they have the in-season tournament game against the Nuggets, then the Suns, then the Warriors. This little stretch will be really important to kind of see how this Rockets team deals with some of the other upper echelon competition in the association. But I had the chance to ask Eme Udoka the other day about the kind of growing two-man game between KD and Alpi, and this is what he had to say about it.
What's been the most encouraging part about the kind of blossoming two-man game between Kevin and Alpi so far, and where are you kind of looking at those guys to continue to grow and improve in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, if individually and together they draw a ton of attention, and Kevin's such an unselfish guy, and I think the fact that he has a guy like Alpi to relieve that pressure and find him in the pocket off of doubles, he understands that he's going to make the right play. And I always say if he doesn't care about the hockey assist, getting the assist, he'll make the hockey assist and let Alperen kind of pick it apart from there. And so whether it's isolations or post-ups or their pick and roll action, they're getting trapped quite a bit. And the fact that you have both of them in the action, I think, helps the other one kind of alleviate the pressure and another guy to get out and get shots off of. And so they're obviously going to be a big part of what we do going forward. So whether it's them one-on-one or them together as in the tandem, that's worked so far really well.
Shout out to Ime for discussing it and kind of breaking it down there. And, it matches the eye test of what we've seen so far with KD and Alpi through the early part of the season. They do work really well playing off of one another. The attention that Kevin generates leads to some incredibly easy opportunities for his teammates. And when you have, one star player being able to attack off of the gravity of another star player, it really does generate some of the easiest offense that we've seen in recent memory for this Rockets team. And what's really been impressive is that Kevin Durant, who is generally, not, a guy that you think of as a dominant, pick and roll ball handler kind of guy, a guy that is out there running the offense a ton. He gets some touches, he does some work in the pick and roll. His numbers this season have been really encouraging, and they're going to get better as he continues to establish that chemistry with Alpi. Right now, KD is, about 20% of his offensive plays are as a pick and roll ball handler. In fact, that's the second most frequent play type this season. So his most frequent play type has been isolations, where he's been solid, not amazing, not phenomenal, but solid in isolations. He's generating about 0.95 points per possession in isolation, which is good. It's not phenomenal. It'll continue to grow and get better for sure. But his second most frequent play type this season is as a pick and roll ball handler. He's had 55 possessions as the primary ball handler running pick and roll. And right now they're clocking in on those possessions 0.982 points per 100 possessions. So it's creeping up there. It's getting very close to going over 1 point per possession. And basically any play where you can guarantee better than 1 point per possession is really solid. Right now the Rockets and KD are ranking in the 71st percentile of him as a pick and roll ball handler this season. And some of that is going to be, Alpi cleaning up his efficiency, right? Cleaning up his ability to be a better play finisher out of some of those opportunities. But the Rockets as a team, who have been shooting the lights out of the ball. And, when you've got KD getting a screen from Alpi and then getting the ball over the top to Alpi in the middle of the floor, able to attack a defense that first has to stop KD, then the defense has to try and find a way to stop Alpi. And even if they manage to stop both of those guys, you stop KD, you stop Alpi, by then the defense is so scrambled and scattered that Alpi's been really good about picking it apart and then kicking it out to the wide open shooter or making that next pass, whether it's, a shooter or a cutting him in Thompson from the baseline. And, this Rockets team is really hard to guard in that regard, because when you've got those two guys out there drawing so much attention from everyone else, it just makes life that much easier for all the other complementary guys, all the other role players on the roster. And here's some of the numbers behind KD and Alpi so far this season. So when they share the floor together right now, they have a I guess hang on. I wanted to do it this way. Let me clean this up. Refresh. Okay. So when Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun share the floor together, they've played 315 minutes together this season. They have a net rating of plus 13.4, which is really good. Like that's insane. An offensive rating of 127.7 and a defensive rating of 114.3. Then when it's just Alperen Sengun on the floor and Kevin Durant hits the bench, Rockets have a plus 17.28 net rating in about 126 minutes. And then when it's KD and no Alpi, they have a plus 9.18 net rating in about 118 minutes. So Ime Udoka doing a really good job of kind of like, again, splitting these guys, staggering them. KD plays the whole first quarter. Alpi comes back and carries the bench unit, right? And so far they've only played 31 minutes with neither of those guys on the floor, right? And that's pretty much just like the garbage time minutes that they played in a handful of games here or there. But one other really interesting number that I wanted to include here, because you look at just what KD and Alpi have done for this team, how good they are when they're on the floor, how bad things look when they step off the floor, right? The fact that they're playing so incredibly well together, and that they're still new, right? They're only 12 games into their career playing together, and it's going to continue to grow and get better with each passing game. Kevin Durant has talked about Alperen Sengun's skills and ability as a big, the most talented big that KD's ever played with. KD is obviously the most talented player that Alpi has ever played with. And again, it feels like their games were almost made in a lab to complement each other. If there's one area that it feels like hasn't really been capitalized on, I guess, between KD and Alpi this season, has been Kevin Durant actually playing a bit more off ball and, trying to get him going off of, some off-ball screens or some cuts, things of that nature. The Rockets the other night against the Magic ran like a really good little like split cut action between Kevin Durant and Jabari Smith Jr. playing off of Alpi, who was kind of posted up at the elbow. And when defenses are trying to like switch and figure out, okay, who do we have to guard? And KD draws that much attention, right? Jabari was able to just dive towards the rim, and Alpi lofted the pass over the top, and Jabari scored an easy 2 right at the rim. Literally no defender anywhere in sight, because they were so worried about making sure that they bottled up KD on that little split cut action. So even though KD himself hasn't been the direct recipient of some of these offensive opportunities or buckets or chances to score or whatever, you can see how it is opening up things for other guys. I am still shocked, though. KD only has 12 points scored off cuts this season, only 6 total possessions. But he's scoring 2 points per possession on those possessions. So that would be one area that I think, the Rockets would hope to look at and find other ways to maybe get KD some offensive involvement without needing the ball in his hands to start the play, because then the defense just tilts everything towards KD. They try to trap him, double him, blitz him, all that stuff. Finding some easier opportunities to get KD off the ball and let him get into some catch and shoot actions, curling off screens, that kind of thing, would be really, really beneficial. He's also been really solid on handoffs this season. So 20 possessions with him operating off handoffs, scoring 1.25 points per possession on those. So that's another area where you take the ball out of KD's hands. He's still going to have a ton of gravity, attract a ton of attention, but it doesn't allow the defense to load up on him. And he just takes, a quick little dribble handoff or something like that, and is able to take a quick 1-2 dribbles and get straight to his like mid-range pull-up or attacking downhill. So different ways to see this duo thrive. And with Alperen Sengun playing his game, operating at a high level out of the post, still needs to clean up a little bit offensively, right? But the shooting this season has been such an overwhelming positive that even though there's been some games where he's struggled a little bit still, like inside the paint or around the rim, he's more than making up for it right now with the outside shooting, with the 3-ball, with the willingness and ability to pull from confidence from almost anywhere on the floor. And then again, the playmaking leap from Alperen Sengun has been nothing short of absolutely fantastic. And the playmaking leap from Alpi is almost, in a way, a direct result of the gravity that Kevin Durant generates on a night-to-night basis. So watching this duo, watching this Rockets superstar duo, I'm calling it a superstar duo because that's what it is. Alperen Sengun has been one of the best 3 bigs in the entire NBA this season. That's an all-NBA caliber big man right there. KD's playing at an all-NBA caliber level. Rockets are going to have at minimum 2 all-stars on this team, and it's Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun for sure this season. Coming up, want to compare and kind of rank Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun, the Rockets star duo, compared to some of the other star duos in the NBA landscape. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Skims. When Skims announced they were making underwear for men, the reaction made perfect sense. People have been talking about Skims comfort for years. Most guys, though, stick to whatever they've been buying since college or even before that. The same fits, the same waistbands, the same boxers that flare out over time. Look, once I tried Skims men's underwear, I got the hype immediately. They're designed to feel good. They fit right. They actually stay put. No slipping, no sagging, no adjusting. Just genuinely great underwear that makes you feel confident and comfortable all day long. My favorite set that I've gotten so far are the stretch 5-inch boxer briefs kind of guy. And the fit, the fabric, it's awesome. They move with you. They're comfortable. They're great whether you're, leading an active lifestyle and you're out, getting a run in or working out, or if you're just out running errands for the day. And you can check them out too. Shop Skims Men's at skims.com. And when you place your order, choose podcast in the purchase survey drop-down box and select our show from the menu that follows so that they know that we sent you. Plus, the Skims holiday shop is open. So if you're looking for the perfect gift this season, Skims Men's has you covered. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who's going to score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every single game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, let's talk a little bit about, well, actually, I wanted to include one more statistic that I didn't get to in segment one, and that is actually that right now, the Rockets, I went through some of the numbers for the two-man lineup of Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun. We talked about this the other day very briefly in our previous show, talking about Reed Sheppard and his eventual potential starting role for this Rockets team. But right now, they've only played 70 minutes together. Kevin Durant, Alperen Sengun, Reed Sheppard. But in those 70 minutes, the Rockets have a plus 22.03 net rating, an offensive rating of 136.84, and a defensive rating of 114.81. Those numbers are going to continue to bear out over the rest of the season, it feels like. And even though Reed's not starting right now, he's getting, borderline starters level minutes because Ime's given him 25 to 30 a night, it feels like at this point. And maybe that's just the best dynamic, right? Reed comes off the bench. He's that spark off the bench. But when Reed and KD and Alpi are out there all together, the Rockets offense it's already kind of unguardable without Reed out there, but you throw Reed in the mix and then holy crap, it's like it accelerates to an unbelievably good level. Very exciting stuff there. But let's get into taking a look around the association, because this Rockets duo, they have a legit superstar duo, right? You have a bona fide top 10 guy in Kevin Durant. You have Alperen Sengun, who is on his way to becoming one of the best players in the NBA. I'd argue that he's already a top 25 player in the NBA. And so far, the way that he's been playing this season, he is playing like one of the best 15 guys in the association, right? He is easily a top 3 center in the league. And if Jokic, who's a 3-time MVP and, doing, obviously Alpi's, namesake, baby Jokic, all that stuff. Jokic is hard to, exceed production wise. So it's understandable that Alpi isn't quite as good as Jokic yet. And then painfully, right, unfortunately, Victor Wembanyama is on his upwards ascension as one of the most dominant players in the NBA. However, Wemby's sidelined again. So the injury-prone allegations are going to start sneaking up on Wemby, but Wemby has been incredibly dominant this year as well. I think it's fair to have those two guys ranked ahead of Alperen Sengun, but Alpi has been the third best big man in the NBA and far and away better than any other big outside of those two guys. And there might even still be a little bit of a conversation to be had about Alpi versus Wemby as far as just from a sheer production standpoint this season. But Wemby just impacts the game at such a high level defensively. It's really hard to compare that. So with that, I was curious. I started kind of like canvassing and thinking about it in my mind. Where would this Rockets duo rank this season amongst all the other star duos in the NBA? Because here's the thing is there's a lot of star duos in the NBA, but they're a bit more lopsided in nature, right? Where one of the two stars is doing quite a bit more of the heavy lifting. Case in point, the two names that I just finished talking about, Jokic and Murray, that's the Nuggets star duo, and then Wemby and De'Aaron Fox. Now, here's the thing is Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun are far and away better than Jamal Murray and or De'Aaron Fox, right? As far as duos are concerned, because neither Fox nor Jamal Murray are top 20 players in the NBA. Meanwhile, the Rockets have a top 10 guy and a top 20 guy in Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun. But Jokic and Wemby are both so good that it's really hard to kind of like, I guess, try and quantify, that duo as far as how they should rank amongst the NBA's elite duos of the association so far. And I'm just focused on this season, right? I'm not focused on historical precedent. I'm also not focused on like, oh, well, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are great when they're healthy, but Tatum's out. No, I'm just focused on this season right here, right now. And I think that using that as my logic here, I'm going to run through who I think have been some of the best duos in the NBA this season. And I'm curious your thoughts. I want your lists at the bottom as well. I have to give the nod of best duo, unfortunately, have to go SGA and Chet Holmgren at the top of the list. The Thunder have been the most dominant team in the NBA. Once again, they're well on their way to potentially shattering the 73-9 Warriors record, and they're the favorites to repeat right now. And obviously, SGA is a big part of that, but Chet Holmgren has been a huge part of that as well. His defense impact is absurd. And then offensively, he's elevated his offensive game, a little bit further this season to help make up for the absence of J-Dub on that roster. If J-Dub was healthy and playing at the level that he was like in the finals and the way that he was last season, the real star duo on the Thunder roster is SGA J-Dub. Chet Holmgren is third banana in that trio. And that's the really scary thing to think about, is that they have an even better duo that hasn't touched the court yet this year. But I probably have to go SGA and Chet number one. Just they've got the record, they've got the wins, they dominate together. And even though on paper, I think that Alperen Sengun has outplayed Chet Holmgren this season, I don't think it's like a massive gap between the two. And so I'm going to, and SGA has been obviously playing out of his mind as well. So I'm going SGA Chet as the best duo right now. And again, that answer could have easily been SGA J-Dub and probably would have been a more confident answer for me. If J-Dub was healthy. After that, I really came down to, and I was trying not to be a homer about this, but I really came down to, I think Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun are the best duo behind SGA and Chet right now in the NBA. And there's still an argument to be made that they're better, but I think it's really hard to say. SGA is playing arguably is the best player in the NBA right now. It's him, it's Jokic, it's Giannis, right? That's your top three. So I've got KD and Alperen Sengun right behind the Thunder duo. And then after that, it gets a little tough. What's crazy is Austin Reeves is playing like an all NBA caliber player this season alongside Luka. His numbers have been absurd. And so again, the Lakers duo is crazy because they've got LeBron James, who hasn't even suited up for their team yet. Right. And you could pick your poison between which duo of those three are the most deadly. But shout out to Reeves for elevating his game. And then this is where it gets hard because again, you've got Jokic and Murray, you've got Wemby and Fox, Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley as well. Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren, who've been playing out of their minds for the Pistons, who lead the Eastern Conference. I think between all of these following sets of names, I'm going to give it to Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren, because Jalen Duren's playing like a bona fide all-star this season, putting up absurd numbers. Cade is playing like a top 15 guy. He's playing like an all-NBA caliber player. And that Pistons team is thriving with those two guys clearly as the two best players on the floor on a night-to-night basis. So I'm going to give them the nod and put them in at third best duo right now in the NBA, just from a production standpoint, a wins standpoint, really like what the Pistons have built and are doing over there. And then I think I'm going to go, God, I'm really torn on this. I'm going to get so much flack for this. You know what? I'm going to go, I got to go Jokic and Murray, and then I'm going Wemby and Fox. I'm not going to put Luka and Reeves up there because Reeves to me is not, Luka's not quite as good as Jokic and Wemby right now. And even though Fox has only just started playing games, so that's tough too. But I'm going to stick by my guns on that. So I'm going Jokic and Murray, Wemby and Fox. And then that gives you your top five, or my top five at least. And so, outside of the top five, then there's, Mitchell and Mobley, Luka and Reeves, and a couple honorable mentions here of like Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, another duo to consider. And there's probably a handful of other duos that I didn't get to or kind of left off this list. But that's kind of where, in my mind, through these first, handful of games, these first, 12 to 15 games or so, SGA and Chet, Kevin Durant, Alperen Sengun, Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren, then Jokic, Murray, and Wemby and Fox, at least to this point. And the Jokic, Murray, and Wemby and Fox duos, again, the bigs are doing a lot of work in those tandems, but you can't ignore what they've done as star players, and their Robins between Murray and Fox have been impactful. So I'm going to give them some credit there. Or maybe I should have picked Steph Castle over De'Aaron Fox. I don't know. Steph Castle's had a really strong season too. I'm curious your thoughts though on some of these NBA duos. How would you rank Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun amongst the NBA's elite duos? Where do they fall in line for you? Give me your thoughts in the YouTube comments. Coming up, we're going to get our Rockets Cavs preview ahead of the Wednesday night matchup. We'll be joined by Locked On Cavs host Danny Cunningham for that here in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Rippling. Look, if you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS, that's sad. Software as a disservice. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance, all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. From their onboarding process to payroll to IT access, it runs automatically and perfectly in sync. It is awesome for small businesses or even bigger businesses alike. And right now you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/lockedonnba. Learn more at rippling.com. That's rippling.com/lockedonnba. That's rippling.com/lockedonnba for 6 months free. And joining us now to preview this Rockets-Cavs matchup is the host of Locked On Cavs, Danny Cunningham. You can track down wherever you listen to your podcast or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Cavs. And Danny, this is going to be a good, kind of feels like maybe a litmus test a little bit for both of these teams, you know, two of the upper echelon teams in the association. Get some housekeeping out of the way here really quickly from the top. Rockets coming into this game 9-3 on the record on the year. Jabari Smith Jr. questionable to play in this one, unfortunately. So the Rockets taking some significant hits to their wing depth because also no Tari Eason, still no Dorian Finney-Smith, and obviously Fred VanVleet, who hasn't played all year. And on the Cavs side of things, Sam Merrill day-to-day. Is he going to play? Questionable? What you think?
I think we'll find out a little bit more about that Wednesday morning. You know, you and I are recording this Tuesday night. He had a finger injury early on in the game against the Bucks that they played on Monday. He came back into that game. And after he injured his finger, he was actually awesome. He hit 6 threes in that game, most of them in the second half after you already injured it. So we'll have to wait and see. I mean, the big issue for them right now is Darius Garland remains out with the toe injury. They don't have Jalen Tyson either. So they are, much like the Rockets, missing some key players for this matchup.
And obviously Max Strus, who's been out the whole year, similar to Fred VanVleet as well. And the Cavs are coming into this game at 10-5 on the season so far. Through these first 15 games for Cleveland, per Cleaning the Glass, they're coming in at 13th in offense, and 8th in defense, 10th in differential at plus 4.1. The offensive numbers are a bit of a far cry from last season, Danny, where they were ranked first at 122.5 points per 100 possessions, also per Cleaning the Glass. What's going on with the offense to start the season for Cleveland?
So they look a lot different, in large part because the personnel is different, right? They are trying to incorporate essentially 4 new rotation members. They've done this without Darius Garland for all but 2.5 games he played. And I'm not sure where they were in Cleaning the Glass, but by the NBA's metric, going into the night that Darius Garland made his season debut, which is 2 weeks ago today, the Cavs were 26th in offense. And then Garland played a few games. Then they got all the way up to like 6th or 7th, I think it was, because they looked like the Cavs offensively again. So I think they miss him a lot. There's been a lot more on Evan Mobley's plate in terms of offensive creation. That hasn't necessarily gone all that well. I don't know that he's always been aggressive enough. He hasn't necessarily looked as comfortable as I thought he would in that role. And really, Donovan Mitchell is the guy that's been keeping them afloat. Like, he's been fantastic this year. He's not going to win the MVP or find himself even in the MVP conversation because some of the guys that, you know, I mean, the Giannis, the Nikola Jokic, SGA, like those guys of the world are going to dominate that conversation. But I find it hard to believe there's been a player that's been more valuable to his team so far this year than what Donovan Mitchell has done for the Cavs, because he's having the best start to a season in his career. He's the reason why they are where they're at offensively. But I do think that there are some positive signs. I think that they're going to shoot the basketball better than they have so far this year. And when they get Darius Garland back and they start to really understand who they are and build their identity, I think they'll get back to being an elite offensive team.
Mentioned his name a couple times already here with Darius Garland, and obviously his health in the playoffs was a storyline, unfortunately, and now it's another storyline to start this season. Where are things at with him in this kind of, you know, recovery process, and what's kind of the concern level at this point with, you know, DG just being healthy and staying on the floor for this Cavs team?
So anytime you re-aggravate an injury, there's obviously concern. So Garland missed the first 7 games, I believe it was, of the season. He played in the team's game against the Philadelphia 76ers 2 weeks ago. He then played in their next game against the Washington Wizards, which was an NBA Cup game, looked better in the game against the Wizards. Like, he looked like a guy making his season debut when the rest of the team was not making their season debuts in his first game, but he looked like Darius Garland night 2. Sat out the second night of a back-to-back, which was all part of the plan and is something I would imagine continues for him when he is back. And then on a game Monday night in Miami, he bruised his toe. And it was the same toe that he had surgery on following the postseason last year that, to your point, really, I think, altered the course of the Cavs postseason run last year. And he's not been back since. Now, the Cavs are going to take a conservative approach with this. They're not going to rush guys back from injury. They have a bigger picture in mind than trying to start off the season as the best team in basketball the way they did last year. That's not their goal this year. So they're being conservative with Darius. I don't think that there's a ton of concern. I feel as if they think they dodged a bit of a bullet when Darius did re-aggravate his toe over a week ago at this point. He's obviously not playing tonight. The Cavs play Friday. They play Sunday. It wouldn't stun me if he plays in one of those games. Like, I don't think he's far off from a return, but they're going to take a very cautious approach with him. And even Max Strus, too, who's not made his season debut. Like, any injury that the Cavs have before the calendar flips to 2026, I don't anticipate them being aggressive with.
Lonzo Ball was, I thought, like a sneaky great addition to this Cavs team. He was a guy that I actually thought, the Rockets should maybe take a look at adding to what they're, we're trying to build here in Houston. How has he looked so far, and how has he kind of been integrated so far this season?
So I think he's been getting better. I think when you miss as much time as Lonzo did, and you have to remember he missed the back half of last season, not because of a knee injury, but because of a wrist injury, right? He has played entering this season. He had played 70 games over the course of 4 years. So as he works back, I think that he has looked understandably rusty for parts of this season. Now, I think the last few games that he's played, and I think if you watch Lonzo Ball, you know that his impact is not necessarily always going to be felt in the box score. But I think if you watch the last few games that he's played with the Cavs, like, it's starting to look the way that the Cavs envision it to look when he's on the floor. He brings a better pace for them, certainly a more up tempo, what I think should be their change of pace that they go to. He's a strong defender. He shares the basketball. I mean, he makes passes, and I think the world of Darius Garland as a passer, I think Donovan Mitchell as a passer is very underrated. Like, he makes passes that very few guys in the world are capable of making. And to see the creativity that he has in that realm, I think not only did it take him some time to sort of learn his new teammates, but I think almost more importantly, it took his teammates some time to learn him. And I think we're starting to see that process bear a little bit of fruit. I think he's starting to look better than he had at the start of the season. I just think that's going to be something that continues to improve as the two sides get more comfortable with each other.
At this point, it's still early in the season, but what's kind of maybe one underreported, or undercovered kind of storyline of this Cavs season so far?
So I think for me, it's that they are different defensively. They are a team that is playing a more aggressive style of defense where they're trying to create a lot of chaos. They are near the top of the league in turnovers forced. They are near the top of the league in deflections. And that's not who the Cavs had been previously. Now, that is something that comes with its own growing pains, right? Like, you don't all of a sudden really turn up the aggression and then you're not perfect elsewhere. Like, the Cavs have been susceptible to maybe some back cuts. They've had some rebounding issues because they're out of position, because they're going for steals. So they're trying to be a more aggressive defensive team. And I think that has brought some positives and negatives with it. But I do think that is one of the things that, because so many people, and understandably so, I mean, when you go from, not only were the Cavs the best offense in basketball last year, they were the second best offense of all time in the NBA last year. So when you go from that to whatever it is, 13th right now, that's going to raise eyebrows just because of where the expectations are. But I think that the style of defense they're playing is the one thing that I look at and say, that is interesting. I don't know how well it's going to work. I do think it's good that they can play multiple ways on that side of the floor. And I think that it's wise to at least try it early in the season.
Kind of looking at this Rockets team and this looming matchup with the Cavs, what's maybe, and we might double dip on this answer, or maybe double down on a couple of things that you just touched base on, but what's maybe one area of strength that you think this Cleveland team has against this Rockets team, and then one area of weakness that you're a little bit worried about when they try to match up with Houston?
Well, I'll start with the weakness part of it, because if you look at the numbers, and I'm sure that you talk about this probably pretty frequently, but the Rockets are the best offensive rebounding team by a country mile in basketball.
That they are. It's basically a coin flip that they're going to get the ball back.
Yeah, like I think the last time I checked, and they've played since I checked this, but their offensive rebounding rate was like 40%, which is almost, to your point, a coin flip. And that difference between them and number 2, who I think was Portland, is the same difference between Portland and like the number 20 team in terms of offensive rebounding rate. So I think any team, maybe this is not the most Cavs specific thing, but the Cavs have not exactly been great on the glass this year. Any team that faces Houston, I think you look at it and say, okay, they have to rebound the basketball. And I think on a Cavs perspective, I just think that they have started to look more comfortable offensively, and they're starting to show these flashes where it's like a possession here, a possession there, that, oh, that looks like the Cavs from last year. That looks like the Cavs on that end of the floor. And of course, Houston has some guys out. You mentioned Dorian Finney-Smith, who's not played, Tari Eason, who's out, Jabari Smith Jr. might not play. Like, the Cavs do, I think, have an advantage there, because Donovan Mitchell has been playing, I think, as I mentioned, the best basketball of his career. I think DeAndre Hunter is having a good start to the season, maybe not as good as I necessarily thought he would be, because I thought he would generate all-star buzz. But I think the Cavs are starting to figure out they have a lot of guys that can score the basketball. I think that could be an advantage against Houston.
Last thing I got for you here, Danny, before we get you out of here. I think I know my answer to this, but I'm curious, which individual matchup are you most excited to see when these two teams face off Wednesday night?
I am going to presume that the Rockets are going to put Ime Thompson on Donovan Mitchell to defend him, and I am very interested to see how that goes. I think the world of Ime Thompson. I think he's going to, like, if he figures out how to shoot, that guy's going to win an MVP. That's how high I am on him as a basketball player. He, I think, is one of the best athletes in the league. I think he's one of the best defensive players in the league. We already saw his brother Asar defend Donovan. Didn't necessarily go very well in a game that the Cavs won by like 30 points against Detroit. So I hope that we see Ime Thompson matched up on Donovan Mitchell, because I'd really like to see how that goes.
The redemption game for twin number 2 over here. I'm going to go a slightly different direction, because I'm very excited to watch 2 members of the 2021 draft class go head to head. Alperen Sengun playing at an all-NBA caliber level. Evan Mobley playing at an all-NBA caliber level. Those two guys, it's always fun watching those two guys match up in these Houston, Cleveland head-to-head matchups. And it'll be interesting to see who ultimately gets the better of that matchup as we watch this game unfold Wednesday evening. But Danny, thank you so much for joining us here on the program. If you're interested in hearing about the Cavs side of things, obviously go check out Danny over at Locked On Cavs. But Danny, thanks so much for being here with us, man.
You got it, Jackson, anytime.
And that's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Rockets. As always, thanks so much for checking out the show. Remember, the best way to help us grow the show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing, and then like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.